Open the podcast bay door as hell.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 187 of Welcome to Geektown. I'm your host, Kurt Onstead. I've been a proud geek all my life, being into role-playing games, board games, sci-fi, fantasy, and especially superheroes and comics. And I want to help others join me in those pursuits, but I've found that sometimes people can get overwhelmed or feel left out because they don't already have what some consider the requisite knowledge to be considered a fan. And that's where Welcome to Geektown comes in. Here, you can ask your questions without feeling like a gatekeeper is calling you out for not yet being fully versed in every aspect of your new interest. This is the first episode in the Agatha All Along deep dive. I've invited back Joel L., who joined me for the WandaVision deep dive, so we could continue our discussions of the magical part of the MCU. Spoiler warnings for not just Agatha All Along, but WandaVision and Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness as well. Now, with 2 episodes released on the first week, this is a long one, so let's get right into it. Starting off with Joel reintroducing himself, since it's been some time since his last appearance on the show.
Hi, everybody. I am Joel L., and I have been friends with Kurt for cough mumble years. And I am a lifelong geek in various things, mostly somewhat music related, but I've been an MCU fan for since Tobey Maguire, and who is
That's
now in the MCU.
Yes.
And I love these things. WandaVision was by far my favorite of the Marvel television series, although I guess now that Marvel television is in the opening credits, Agatha is the only thing that's in the Marvel television. I actually went back and looked it up. I found nothing else with that label.
No, this is the first show with that logo.
Yeah, so
that is my very second note.
Same. I guess I should say it's my favorite Marvel TV show since probably Agent Carter, but the Netflix stuff I loved as well, and
yes.
I guess that will soon be canon as well, but who knows?
It is technically canon according to Disney Plus,
which may or may not mean anything in a year and a half. Who knows?
We'll see.
Things change.
Especially we will see, especially after Daredevil Born Again.
Exactly. I am not a huge follower of the comics. I've read some anime over the years, but in general, I don't read a lot of comics stuff. And I was the guest person during the WandaVision deep dive. And for those of you who listened to that, I apologize. And I will do my best to be more than Ed McMahon this time.
I think you did much better than you think you did, but
I appreciate that. But even listening to the previous episode where you edited together the stuff about Agatha from the WandaVision episodes, it's like, okay, there's me laughing. I chuckled at that. Okay.
All right, well, let's get into Season 1, Episode 1, Seekest Thou the Road? I was actually kind of surprised that they went that route and started with lyrics from the song rather than making a true crime, My Favorite Murder, something,
Sure.
Something along those lines.
I agree, but at the same time, it fit within this idea that the quote unquote real world is kind of seeping into Agatha's consciousness. The first thing we
Yeah,
see of her, she is humming the song.
absolutely. Except we don't know what that song is unless you're someone like me who's watched the promo material. Did you see the performance at D23?
I did not.
Check it out. But yeah, so Agnes is no longer a nosy neighbor. She's now a detective?
Yeah, that was one of my notes as well. Wanda made her someone with authority? What was that all about?
I don't think this is Wanda. We get something later from Herb who says, "You've been on a true crime kick the last 3 days."
Right.
So I think this is the first bit of break where she's no longer the nosy neighbor and is now starting to exude some authority. She's getting her power back, and this is the first step on that journey.
Or at least her agency.
Yes.
I agree. And I should point out that I'm reading from two sets of notes. I took some notes the first time I watched the episode, and I took another set of notes the second time I watched the episode.
Okay.
So you've got perspective from both of that in my comments.
That makes total sense. My notes are only from my second watching. The first time I watch, I just sat there and like, ooh.
I tried to do that, but the very first moment where it said Marvel Television, I was like, all right, get me my pen.
And now Herb greets her with, "Hey neighbor,"
I saw that too.
which fits what we learn later. Some of this is really happening. A lot of it is in her head, but there's enough there that she's actually interacting with some people for a little bit, and then it moves into a hallucination. It would be hilarious to see this episode from the real
perspective of the
world
town.
perspective. Yes.
I agree. I just like we felt with the Moon Knight first episode,
Yes.
as that would be very, very fun.
But it's not
we'll
going to
never
happen. No.
No.
But yeah, she's a detective and there's a dead body here.
Before we get there,
Okay.
there was there was a line that Agnes said that I think really gave us a clue into her psychology, where Herb points out that she'd been dishonorably something or other,
Right.
and
Suspended without
because she
pay.
punched a suspect, and her response was, "Now a convicted felon, you can't be right and wrong at the same time."
Okay. Yeah. No, that makes total sense. And she
Because
sees
now
herself in the right.
and I will be bringing this up quite a few times because that's a very consistent thing. And what we now know from Doctor Strange 2 is that she was in the right. Wanda did turn out to be all of the horrible things that Agatha had predicted.
That's true. Sadly true.
Yeah, um last night I was having a conversation with some friends and they were talking about are we going to start watching Agatha all along? Well, do we have to rewatch WandaVision in order to understand everything? And my response was, you don't have to. I don't think that that's necessary. If you watched WandaVision at some point,
You
that's
know
probably
everything you need
enough.
to know. Yeah.
You know everything you need to know. Now, if you want to refresh yourself, you can probably go back and rewatch just the last two episodes of WandaVision. Um, that was what I did to refresh myself so that I had the context of Agatha
Hmm.
during um, during these recording sessions. But I don't think it's necessary. The show takes place 3 years after WandaVision, and the main character doesn't remember things for the first episode, so we get a lot of reminders.
Yeah.
I don't think you need to worry about remembering what happened previously if you have seen WandaVision in the past. Now, if you haven't, go watch it.
For a
But
number of reasons.
oh yes, it's really good. Doesn't end great, but it's really good.
Yeah. Getting back to the show, though, one of my favorite little bits here is she's dead. She is dead, isn't she, Herb? Oh, she's most sincerely dead. She responds,
You
never
never
know,
know.
and then gives a wink. That
Yeah, it's hey, this could be for so much of this episode specifically, but also the next episode
Mhm.
feels like foreshadowing.
Oh, absolutely.
And I do have a theory that relates very specifically to that line.
Okay.
We'll get there.
Actually, we'll get there very soon because there's only one other note I have before my theory on that, and a little bit of knowledge I know from being on social media. Agnes finds her brooch in the water there.
Which does make me wonder how much of reality that was. I don't think I don't think that she had lost her brooch. I think it was in her house, and a lot of this sequence may have been in her house.
I think most of the sequence takes place in her house. She may have gone outside and said, "Hey, neighbor."
Right.
But as she walked walked down to where the body was, she probably walked back into her house.
Right. Possibly even downstairs to the basement.
Yeah, possibly.
Because we saw her going down the hill.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that makes total sense. So her brooch being somewhere in the basement,
would make sense.
Senior Scratchy was playing with it.
Right.
And she pockets that little piece of evidence.
Right.
And now we get to the reveal of the body. Or do we?
Not quite. I mean, it's the cinematography on this and the way that it was filmed and edited was really nicely done
Mm-hmm.
to effectively give that sense of she probably recognizes it, but not really because her memory isn't wonky. But we have no hints as to, well, no, that's not true. We do have some hints, but we don't get any indication of specifically who this is yet.
Well, I mean that outfit to me said Wanda. It is the sweatsuit look that she had in the final episode and the version of Wanda we saw in 828 in the Doctor Strange 2.
True, and they did focus on the feet and on her hands specifically, the blackened fingers.
Yes, the Darkhold effect, basically.
Right.
Because when Agatha had it, she had the blackened fingers.
Mm-hmm. And we did see that on Wanda throughout
yeah.
the Doctor Strange.
Yes.
And Agnes says, get samples of both, which I thought was a very strange line because we saw hands and feet, but there was no both what between her and the other people in the scene.
Yeah. They later say fingernails and toenails.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to assume that's what it was.
I have to also, but it's a strange continuity thing. It may even have been something in the original script that just got edited out.
But before
that's unlike them.
Before she says that, she asks the body, who are you and what happened to you? And now I'm going to bring in this little bit of outside knowledge.
Okay.
Where an interviewer asked the director if she ever thought of showing Wanda's face in episode 1. Her response, that's a really hard question to answer. You have really stumped me. Sorry, this is the first time I've looked at my publicist. She couldn't answer that question. She was,
which kind of shows it wasn't Wanda.
It might not be, or that people are wondering if this is going to be a way to bring Wanda back.
Oh, I very much think it is.
So,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, there that you never know thing.
Yeah, exactly. If that's true, that this will be one of those TV shows you do have to watch to know what's going on.
Potentially.
Potentially. I mean, they could.
Again, whoever this Wanda is, if it is Wanda, may only exist in Marvel television from now on.
Yeah, maybe.
If she doesn't take an active part outside of the TV shows, then the other characters assume she's dead because she was.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, if this is Wanda, then my assumption is the next time we will see her outside of this show will be in Vision.
Right. One last little couplet before we get into the opening theme, which was Herb saying, "You don't seem like yourself," which was another one of those lines that I was like, on the second viewing, I was like, was that really Herb? Because that...
Right. And then she kind of snaps into her into Agnes's character on the show and says, "Really, who is that?"
And who is that exactly? Yeah, and that, I think that's the whole premise of this opening episode is,
agreed.
Who are you?
And especially she has moments of kind of losing the detective character.
Mm-hmm.
And this was one of them. When she was asking, "Who are you? What happened to you?" I don't think that was Detective Agnes asking those questions.
I think it could be both, but yeah, the kind of the softness of her voice. She has a very specific delivery as Agnes O'Connor.
Right.
Versus her Agatha persona. But, this opening theme.
Oh, so good. I was so happy when I found out that the Lopezes were back for this.
Yes.
And as our listeners may recall, I was very into the Lopezes in WandaVision. They were in charge of the theme songs for every episode there.
Yeah.
And based on these two episodes, they are credited for having written an original song, like singular.
Yes.
However, we get a new version of it in each episode. So I'm wondering if that original song will have 9 versions.
I'm guessing it will probably have 7 or 8, maybe. I have a feeling like maybe the last 2 episodes or so,
not so much.
They'll break from that.
That is the pattern.
Yeah. But yeah, the song is great. I love the lyrics, the different versions of it. And now this is I think it's the only non-witch type show / movie that we're going to get any sort of reference to. And I love the coincidence that this is Agnes of Westview, because it is a straight homage to Mayor of Easttown.
Oh, that's funny.
So, I mean, just pure coincidence. There's no way they could have planned that ahead of time, with Westview being named 3 years ago.
No, but once it was named, they could make that what it was.
Yes. Well, but the fact that there is now a Mayor of Easttown show to connect that to.
Yeah.
Starring Kate Winslet as a detective.
I've been told it's very good and I should see it.
Yeah, ditto. And the other little bit that I loved here is based on the Danish series.
Oh my god, yes.
WandaVisdaisen.
I suspect, I did not go into any pronunciation guides or anything like that, but I suspect if you asked a Danish person to pronounce that word, it would come out WandaVision.
Probably something close to it.
The other thing I loved about that entire sequence was that the actors in Agnes of Westview were all the characters of Westview. These were the neighbors.
Yes, these were the WandaVision, the the TV show names, not the townspeople names.
Right.
It's
Dottie,
there.
Mrs. Hart.
There's three levels. there's there's the actual actor.
Right.
Then there's the character that they are being in the town of Westview, and then there's the TV show within that, and those character names. So it's a little confusing, but
Yeah, but they keep it straight,
yeah,
and
absolutely,
it's glorious.
and it's perfect.
And I do love that they brought back the actors from WandaVision. The actors who played the townspeople in Westview
Mm-hmm.
are back playing the same town people in Westview, and
Yes.
that's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's lovely to see Emma Caulfield back.
Absolutely. Speaking of which, that's the very next scene.
Yeah.
Dottie is the librarian here, and I did not catch it until Agnes wrote it down. Did you catch the anagram on first viewing?
On first viewing, no, but when she wrote it down, it was like, oh,
Yeah.
dialogue and rhetoric, known history of learning and debate. And here comes my first question to Kurt.
Okay.
By Andrew Hugo. Who?
Anagram. Wundagore.
Who?
Wundagore is the mountain where the Darkhold was originally etched in the end of Doctor Strange 2.
And that's what I get for not rewatching that one. Very nice.
Yeah. So, yes, the title is an acronym, the author is an anagram. They are having fun with words.
Yeah. Words and puzzles. This is great stuff.
Yeah. And the funny thing is that they did a really good job with that backronym. And so I didn't notice it. It looked like a real title. I was trying to come up with like, okay, it's like philosophy and debate
or law.
Yeah.
But whatever it is not natural sciences. Why is it filed there in the library?
Because there's not an unnatural sciences section.
I'll take that.
But we learn that the book was stolen 3 years ago, and then we find all the remaining copies were destroyed.
Now, on my first viewing, that was my first question of timeline of the book was stolen 3 years ago. That feels right for when we saw WandaVision. In continuity, is that the right timeline? And we find out later, of course, that it is.
Yes.
And yes, this destruction of that one stack was my first hint that, well, for me anyway, because I'm sometimes very oblivious to such things, that these other copies that were destroyed are all Darkholds.
Yeah, that's when I kind of started to be like, oh wait, this this is part of Agatha's story, not just Agnes's. Now, somebody whispers to her about the fire.
Yeah, I wrote that down also. Who is this guy?
The only person in Westview that it looks like is Dennis the mailman.
But Dennis the mailman wouldn't have known any of that.
Not.
I think this was a layer up. I think somebody in Agnes's world had somehow invaded this hallucination.
I was wondering that as well. I'm not sure.
It may or may not even be relevant.
It may not, but it felt relevant at the time.
Yeah, for all we know, it could just be this is part of the subconscious of Agnes trying to break herself out of this. Which is kind of a strange thing. Actually, a lot of this is strange because the character of Agnes that Wanda created when she transformed Agatha into this townsperson, how would she know anything about the status of the Darkhold?
Well, again, I think it's a bit of the real world coming in and giving Agnes messages, or giving Agatha
Well,
messages.
I think that's true also, but I think that was either Rio or the teen. We find out later that the teen is taking credit for breaking Wanda's spell.
Right.
At this point, she's in process of the spell being broken, even though the Latin that we hear is later.
Right.
But even if the real world is breaking into the hallucination, Agnes has no way of knowing anything about the status of the Darkhold. Someone else has to be feeding her that info.
Well, my feeling was that when Wanda died,
You never know.
yep, wink, that it messed with the spell enough to alter it to the detective world and to start to give Agatha, as you said, her agency back, and to let her know, hey, look, Wanda's dead. Look, the Darkhold's gone. I think it was at this point, before Rio or the teens show up, I think it's just the spell itself
Going wonky.
going wonky.
Maybe. For that to happen, she would have to have some kind of connection to the Darkhold, which is feasible.
I mean, she does. You know, she is the previous holder of the Darkhold, and we see on the library card later her name appear.
I appreciated that the library card did not have years on it.
Yes. And this is not my discovery, but all of the dates on there, after except for the last two, are birthdays and release dates of actors and shows connected to. So like Elizabeth Olsen's birthday is on there, Stan Lee's birthday is on there,
That's so cool.
the day Doctor Strange 2 came out is on there, the day WandaVision was released is on there. So it's all a bunch of those kinds of things chosen as the dates.
Marvel is good at hiding little Easter eggs.
Yes. Again, not my discovery, but
yeah, there had to be something with that list of dates. They couldn't have just been randomly chosen.
Yeah. But we've mentioned Rio a number of times now. We should probably get to her introduction, which is,
I suppose,
at the police station.
We do not know her name in show yet.
Correct.
Except for a subtitle in episode 2.
Well, we do find out a last name.
Yes, Agent Vidal.
Yes. But before that, we do have the police chief, which is our favorite townsperson from WandaVision, Jones. And again, this is where we learn that Agnes has a last name.
Right.
Agnes O'Connor. I looked it up and there's no connection to Agatha, but Mayor of Easttown has a very Irish last name, Mayor Sheehan. And so I think that's just that sort of reference.
It would make sense for them to continue making those sideways references.
Yeah, exactly. But the feds are taking over the investigation, and that's where
sort of
Agent Vidal / Rio shows up. Yeah, you're right with sort of, because Agnes says, you want to take control of my investigation, and Rio very pointedly says, no, if you want to be in control, you can be.
Yeah, yet another moment of, I am breaking this world to give you some advice or a hint or a something.
Yeah. And she does that a couple of times. Now, I want to point out that if Rio really wanted to kill Agatha,
this would have been a good time to do it.
This would have been the perfect time to do it. She is...
Agreed. We find out later that she can't because it's against the rules, whatever that means.
Yeah. Those rules are very confusing.
And I'm sure it will be elucidated later.
Probably.
Along with the relationship between these two women.
Yes.
which is obviously way more complicated than it appears.
Yeah, but Rio is just poking the bear the whole time. Is this how you see yourself? You've lived here your whole life, right?
Uh-huh.
I love Aubrey Plaza so much.
Oh, she's so great. I was not aware of her prior to her role in Legion,
Okay.
but oh my God, she owns that show.
Absolutely. I feel like I had seen her before then. Oh, Scott Pilgrim.
Really?
Yeah. She's Julie Powers. She works at the coffee shop.
It's been so long.
She's the one who bleeps herself when she talks. The little box comes up in front of her mouth whenever she curses, and it gives a kind of a noise, like
Kind of similar to what we'll see later in this show.
a little bit, yeah.
Interesting. I need to see that one again. I loved that movie.
Oh, me too. That's one of my favorite non-superhero comic book adaptations of all time.
Fair.
So when Rio leaves, when Agent Vidal leaves, she says te veo, which in South American Spanish is used to basically say I'll see you later, but literally means I see you.
Interesting.
So I love the double meaning there
Yeah.
of, yeah, see you later, but I know who you really are. I see you.
Right.
That is just a perfect, amazing little bit of her character there.
Yeah. I love every appearance she makes in Agnes of Westview.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I disliked her appearance in the outside of the show within a show.
Yeah. And I will point out that there is no Rio Vidal in Marvel Comics.
I was going to ask. That's interesting.
Fans have theories.
Of course they do.
Now, when I went back and listened to the WandaVision stuff to edit it together for the last episode, whoo boy was I all in on Mephisto.
Boy, oh boy, were you ever.
And fans
So,
are...
are you thinking this might be Rio Vidisto?
Well, fans are speculating that she will end up being a character called Blackheart.
Well, that was heavily indicated later.
Yes. Who is the son of Mephisto.
Interesting.
Mostly has been a Ghost Rider villain, but has shown up in many magical, supernatural aspects of Marvel Comics since he was first created. So that is the theory there. And if that is true, that is 3 children of supernatural beings in this show. Actually, I take that back. That is 10 supernatural at least in their Marvel Comics versions. So
do tell.
We'll get there.
Okay.
First, we have a brief diversion over to Norm, the pawn shop owner.
Right.
And we find out that the brooch has a compartment. It's a locket.
And I'm sure that the question of whose hair is that will be one of the mysteries that maintains for a while.
Yes, I would agree with that. I have a few theories. Well, I have a few guesses, I think is probably more accurate.
The obvious option is Rio.
Rio is one option, and because of all the familial things based on theories, either her mom's or her son's, or maybe it's Agatha's herself. Maybe there's some sort of, like, Horcruxy situation there where she cut off a piece of herself and saved it for some reason.
Stored some magic in there or something?
Yeah. I don't know.
I could see that.
So, yeah, that is definitely a question that we'll be looking for an answer to as this continues on.
Yeah, this episode is
as
full
we
of
continue
those.
down the road.
Yeah.
And here's where we finally get, for those of us who hadn't put it together yet, Agnes literally spells it out for us.
Yeah, starts underlining things and writing them down onto the side.
Yeah, dark, okay, I'm freaked out now.
Right. That was where I wrote down, called it.
Nice.
Which I'm proud of because I don't usually get the opportunity to have that feeling. I'm usually taken by surprise by many, many, many things.
And you called it before I did. I didn't put that together myself until she underlined it, and I was like, oh, damn it.
Yeah, I didn't get it from the name. I got it from the fire.
Okay, nice. Well done. And so she decides to walk around her house a little bit, and
Before you go further than that phrase, this bugged me in WandaVision, and then they resolved it in WandaVision, and then now it's unresolved again. Whose house is this? It was Ralph's.
But Ralph was the person that Wu was looking for. He was his guy in witness protection.
Okay.
So my assumption would be that Ralph no longer lives there.
Which makes that house just a random sword house.
Yes.
So it may as well be Agnes's.
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you for making that bug me less.
You're welcome. Yeah, no Ralph showing up in this show.
Which is good and bad.
Yeah.
Mr. Boner was not needed in this.
No, but Evan Peters is always fun.
Yes, he is.
But as I was saying a second ago, there is a kid's room.
Yeah, Nicholas Scratch is the name on the trophy.
Yes, and the drawing is done by Nikki. So yes, this is Nicholas Scratch's room, and Nicholas Scratch is the son of Agatha Harkness in the comics.
I suspected that would be the case. And that is obviously one of my theories, and I'm sure it's a popular one. I haven't looked online or anything of who the teen is.
Okay. That to me is the theory that I would have if there wasn't so much outside knowledge that is pointing in a very different direction.
Okay.
But yeah, Nicholas Scratch is the child of Agatha Harkness and was the leader of New Salem for a while and controlled the Salem's Seven.
Oh, good. We're getting there.
Oh
boy, is that a question I had.
Who are his children.
Oh.
At least in the comics. So if you're going by comic book relations, Agatha is being chased down by her grandkids.
That doesn't seem likely.
I don't think so. And Nicholas has been mostly a villainous character, but the Salem 7 started as a villainous team, but in recent comics have turned themselves around and even teamed up with Speedball and the New Warriors in Volume 5 of the New Warriors. Because I gotta get a Speedball reference in here somehow.
As much as you can. That's awesome. I will have more questions about them in the next episode.
Okay. Well, we can talk about them in the next episode. Although I will point out that Agatha's rabbit is Senior Scratchy. Did she turn her son into a rabbit?
That's an interesting question. I mean, she could have.
Especially if it meant more power.
Well, I have theories on that as well.
Okay.
If it meant getting rid of a threat without destroying her son, right. I could see that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because Agatha, she was the villain of WandaVision.
I would call her the antagonist of WandaVision at this point.
Okay, fair enough. And she wanted Wanda's power. She's She seems to be willing to do nearly anything to get that power, but she has just enough of a conscience to not cross certain lines. And she rides that line between likable and a jerk.
And here's where this one is what I would probably consider my hottest of takes on this.
Ooh.
I am no longer convinced that she is motivated by what we thought she was when we saw her in WandaVision. Having gone back and rewatched those last 2 episodes of WandaVision where we see her background and her as actually Agatha talking and doing all of this stuff, at the time, we had called her chaotic neutral. I think she's chaotic good. And here's looking at it from a farther back perspective. The only thing she does that is evil in WandaVision is kill the dog.
Okay.
Now, she very clearly knows that Vision and the kids are constructs made by Wanda. If Sparky was too, then she didn't actually kill a dog. The entire time, she's saying, my thing is I take power from the unworthy. She's not saying, I am evil and I want more power. She's saying, Wanda, you are an agent of chaos and I have to reduce your ability to destroy the world.
Right.
I think she sees herself as the hero in everything she does.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's true of almost every person, especially every character. No one wants to see themselves as the villain.
Right, but I think she actually might be. And part of the reason for that theory is that Disney isn't going to make a Maleficent show without turning her into the hero. They aren't going to give us an evil person so that we have to root for the antagonist.
Okay.
They're going to give us someone who appears a little bit mischievous and who at the end we find out was the good guy all along. And I think that's what's going to end up happening, that Agatha, even in the sequence of her past where she kills her own coven, she looks as surprised as anyone else that it's happening.
True. Now, how do you reconcile that with the attitude that all the other witches have to Agatha?
I think that when she killed her own coven, that created a legend.
Okay.
And she was so traumatized by her coven trying to kill her, and then her power turning that around, that she just leaned into it, and that's what made her chaotic. And I think that that reputation over the 4 centuries that she's been wandering around has given her this attitude that she pulls out as a defense mechanism the entire time. And she's always questioning whether or not she's actually as evil as everyone says. Even when the team talks about the baddest person on the continent or in the world, her face is not in pure agreement. She's like, well, this is the character I have to play. I think that this was all for show. I think even at the end of the next episode, where she is antagonizing the other characters to try and attack her so that she can steal their power, was for their protection.
I'm not going to disagree with you. I think that's a very well thought out hot take.
Thank you. Told you I'm not the Ed McMahon this time.
She was a good guy all along.
Exactly. And that's what I think we're going to see.
Yeah, I enjoy that take. I look forward to seeing the show through that interpretation and seeing how it matches up.
We'll see.
But to do that, we need to get back to the show and what's going on in it.
Oh, I suppose.
Where Rio shows up at Agnes's house.
Right. With pizza.
With pizza. That was an empty box.
Well, yes. You're not going to pull that pizza out from behind you with one hand in that way and not have cheese smeared everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. That was the empty coffee cup of this episode.
Yeah.
And Rio pokes at Agnes here a couple more times. with "Where have you traveled?" and "Do you remember why you hate me?"
Right.
And this is where things are definitely breaking down, because a TV character, if asked those questions, would just have an answer. It would be made up, but it would be an answer.
Yeah.
So the fact that Agnes can't remember is that poking of the holes in the fabric of reality.
Which I think is, I mean, I don't think that she's poking the bear. I think she's poking holes.
Okay.
I strongly suspect that we will later find out that these two have a romantic history and she wants her friend back.
That would not surprise me at all. This is a very queer-friendly show.
Yes.
So, yeah, I would be unsurprised to find out that they have a romantic past of some sort.
Yeah.
But that hole poking is interrupted by the teen. Or just teen. That is
Right.
how he is credited in IMDb and other locations.
And the credits.
Yeah, and the credits. He is teen.
Which, I mean, they have a history of this kind of strategy. When the song was titled It's Been Blank All Along.
Yeah. So, he's breaking in. What was he trying to find?
Again, it's unclear what he was trying to find or if he was trying to find anything. I don't know, because he later says, I broke you out of that spell.
Right, but I think him breaking her out of that spell comes later.
Right, but maybe he was looking for something personal of hers that he could use to assist with the breaking of the spell. I don't know.
Yeah, that's reasonable. But yeah, as soon as Agnes shows up, he sprints out of there. And
right.
We get this fun little chase scene.
Where he really does hold his own pretty effectively.
Well, Agnes doesn't have any powers to speak of.
No, but she is a detective. And the cops have decent training, even if they've been out of practice from being on the streets for that purpose.
Okay, but how much training did the spell actually give her?
Oh, very little, I'm sure. And again, if this is all a hallucination from within the spell, that's even less.
Right, yeah.
But she, at one point, she corners him, she pins him, and he twists around and gets out of it very easily.
Yeah.
And that was a good move.
Yeah, true. But he's hit by Mrs. Hart's car, which is another one of those things, because Sharon
right,
doesn't mention that later when Agatha comes up to her and invites her over to the party in the next episode.
That's true. If she had actually hit a kid and Agnes had just indicated, get back in your car.
Get in your car, citizen.
Got out of she would have asked.
She would have said, is that kid okay? Something, at the very least, she would have said, hey, isn't that the kid I hit earlier when she shows up at the party? So, yeah, it's another one of those, like, which parts were hallucination, which parts were real.
Rooted in reality.
Because she got Teen into her house and tied him up and gagged him at some point. So how did she do that? It's we'll never know what was real and what was not, but it feels like that should have been a real moment. But the fact that it's never referenced by Sharon later makes it feel like it wasn't. So it's
agreed.
It's very confusing. Yeah,
which calls into question the rattling around in the bedroom scene, and if none of that happened, how did she get him? And all the things.
But she does get him, and she starts interrogating him, and this is where I think his first action to break the spell happens. By him mentioning the road is when actual reality starts to break for Agnes.
Right.
Because the pictures of Wanda are now just pictures of, I believe that's Dottie's front yard. I believe Dottie had the yellow flowers in WandaVision.
Yeah. Agreed.
And the one-way mirror is now just a painting. So she's in her house, and the teen starts chanting.
Something in Latin.
Something in Latin. I did not bother to try to figure out exactly what he was saying and plug it into Google Translate. I'm sure
I don't think it's needed.
Agatha, be free.
I'm sure that they did their research and found something appropriate for him to have said,
yes.
And it's totally irrelevant to anything.
Yeah. But this breaking makes Agatha say, okay, I need to go check the body, because there was a body, right?
Mm-hmm.
But no, there wasn't. At least not until Agatha starts describing it.
Right.
So she's basically putting the spell walls back up at first.
As one would when the reality starts to break down.
Yeah. You go to what you are comfortable with. You go to the reality that you know and say, this must be the right one.
Right.
I love the detail of the library card now being a toe tag.
Yes.
And this is where she starts to break out. First, we get W. Maximov on the library card as the last holder of the Darkhold.
Mm-hmm.
And then Rio shows up, and then we get... Oh, I love this sequence so much.
I do too, but I really have to wonder, this scene made me so confused about where Rio actually showed up and where she didn't exist. And I mean, was she there?
I think she was...
What?
I think she was there pretty much the whole time. I think she was basically in the house. She talked to Agnes before the teen broke in. The teen breaks in. Agatha runs out after him. She hangs out.
And she doesn't go anywhere. She just sticks around.
She just sticks around. Agatha gets in her car, which we'll get to in episode 2.
Oh God, that was hilarious.
So now she's at the police station, and Rio is still there. But my feeling is Rio can see both realities.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Otherwise, that was really indicated with, is this how you really see yourself?
Yeah, exactly. But the sequence where she claws her way through her outfits
so good.
In reverse chronological order.
Mm-hmm.
The naughty on the sweatpants.
Right.
the 80s.
That one freaked her out.
Yeah, she was
great.
Oh shit, 80s hair! And then the final shot of her coming up in black and white, and then releasing herself in the bright light, and then there she is, finally free and naked.
Yes, in all her glory.
But yeah, she goes outside and finds out all the details from her. But this is where she finds out that it's been 3 years.
Mm-hmm. And boy, oh boy, is she more interested in what's been happening than in what people are perceiving of her.
Oh yeah, she doesn't care. I read a bit of an interview with Catherine Hahn, and this was her idea. She thought that it was a good way to show exactly how powerless she is at that moment.
I totally see that.
And it's definitely not done
gratuitously.
Yeah, it is not done for titillation. It is not done for the male gaze. This is absolutely her, like she said, powerless.
Yeah, or realizing she's at her lowest point.
But she is still Agatha. She is still a witch. And there are many practices that involve being naked and being out in the outside. And so she wouldn't care. That wouldn't...
Sure.
This isn't... It's not the nakedness that bothers her. That is just a symbol of how powerless she is at this point.
Herb, however, he's bothered.
Yes. He's doing his best to hold up his hand and not look anywhere that would be inappropriate.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the couplet here between them. You've mostly been a good neighbor, bit too casual with your boundaries. Call me nosy and I'll cut out your tongue. uh, and yeah, this is where, again, as I mentioned earlier, it's only the past few days that she's been in true crime mode.
Mm-hmm.
So up until
Which
then,
does beg the question, what has she been doing the last 3 years?
playing the nosy neighbor.
Okay.
She's just been at my, they mentioned that when she had her breakdown sort of thing that they've been like bringing her groceries and things, which is why some of these people have shown up in these hallucinations.
In the storyline.
Yeah, in the storyline. But up until then, I just figure she's been a citizen of Westview. That they all know her true story and are just like, okay, we're just gonna, you can be Agnes all you want. Just
Please do. Yeah. I wonder, again, going back to WandaVision, in that last episode,
Mhm.
Agnes is the one that frees them. They start begging Wanda, just let me see my kid,
Right.
that
Yeah.
kind of thing. And she says, "You're making them say this," and Agnes says, "They're your meat puppets. I just cut their strings."
Right. But at the same time, Wanda was the one who actually opened the curtain and let them out. She only made Wanda do that by pointing out how torturous it was. It wasn't
Yes, but again,
I'm forcing you to open the curtain and let all these people out. It is just I'm making you see how bad it is. And Wanda says, "Oh, you're right. Let's let everyone out."
right. Which again lends itself to my theory that Agatha is actually a hero,
Yeah,
because heroes don't torture people.
this is true. So Herb calls Agatha powerful in her new appearance, and that kind of clicks something in her head, and she heads home and tries casting a spell. But no, even though she's free of the hallucinations, she still does not have her power.
Which we did see in the last episode of WandaVision. Wanda did take all of her power.
Right, yeah, yeah. All of her purple is gone.
Yes.
But who is not gone is Teen, who is bound and gagged in the pantry, closet, something.
Something like that. I really enjoy his character. I'm thoroughly appreciating how he's been written and how he's being acted.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is an appropriate amount of I know my shit and I have no idea what the hell's going on. It's just nicely done.
Yeah. He and Mrs. Davis are two kind of POV characters, I think.
Yeah, the audience analog.
Yeah. But we don't get much with him at this point because Rio explodes.
Wait, if you're real,
that means boom. Oh shit.
and then we have a battle sequence that is kind of confusing because why would she be attacking so viciously
if she's can't kill her?
Right.
So yeah, and this makes me wonder, is it because they had a romantic relationship at one point? Were they part of the same coven at some point? Is there other witchy rules that prevent one witch from killing another?
I suspect.
Okay.
My theory.
Yes.
I don't think Agatha had another coven after the one that tried to kill her. I think she would have avoided that situation absolutely. Just, and she later says that those witches are dust.
Okay.
So I don't think there was another one. But if she and Rio had been romantically entangled, they may have cast a joint spell that made it so that Rio couldn't kill Agatha and Agatha couldn't steal Rio's powers without dying.
Okay. Now, the only piece of evidence I will bring up to potentially disagree with you is unless she did so before her coven attacked, she went down the witch's road before, and that requires a coven.
Oh, that's true. Well, it requires witches to act in the roles of a coven.
Okay.
She needs a spark of power to open the door.
Right. So
And we don't yet know what's required on the road.
At the very least, well, they've said a green witch is probably the most important.
Right.
So she, at the very least, had a coven-like collection of people at some point in the past.
Yes.
Um,
But it could easily be the same kind of haphazard will get together the random people that she has now.
Yeah, although it didn't take as long last time.
True.
So
we are so getting ahead of
we
ourselves.
are getting ahead of ourselves.
And I totally get what you're saying.
Yeah.
That is a valid counter argument.
Probably something we will find out when we find out Rio's and Agatha's past relationship.
Agreed.
So for now, we can move on from there. And yeah, this is when Agatha convinces Rio, look, you don't want to kill powerless me, even if you could.
You want me formidable.
You want me with my power back. She's like,
let me get my purple back.
And this is where we learn that the Salem 7 are after her.
So, do we have more information about the Salem 7? What kinds of powers they have? I mean, it's indicated they're the worst of the worst.
Right. Now, they make a couple of little references to their sort of comic book related powers.
Animals?
Yes. Mostly. So here are the members of the Salem 7. And when I tell you their names, you will be unsurprised to learn that they were created in the 70s. We have Bruticus, Gazelle, Hydron, Reptilla, Thorn, Vacuum or maybe Vacuume, and Vertigo. Bruticus can transform into a lion-like humanoid with red horns, and in that form is strong enough to match the Thing. Gazelle turns into a deer-like person with cloven hooves, who has super speed and agility. Hydron transforms into a fishman, who can fire out streams of water from the stump end of his left arm. Reptilla, unsurprisingly, transforms into a snake-like being with a single long snake tail instead of 2 legs, and snake arms with poisonous bites.
Okay.
Thorn is a yellow demon-like humanoid with large red thorns on his arms and legs that he can remove from his body and throw, and they either explode or have a stunning effect. Vacuume, however, Vakume.
That makes more sense than a bristle.
He can fly, become intangible, control air, and create winds and vacuums.
So he is a vacuum cleaner, okay.
And then Vertigo.
Because that's how vacuum cleaners work.
Right, yes. They control the wind, they fly around, they become intangible. Yeah, that's I mean, it'd be awesome if they did, but...
Roombas would be even more terrifying.
And then finally, Vertigo doesn't transform at all, has the power to attack a person's sense of balance. She literally can give them vertigo.
I didn't hear anything there about ravens or crows or mice or wolves.
But animals. 4 of the 7 have animal-like forms.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the animals that we see in the show are all animals strongly associated with witches. And so that feels like an appropriate sort of, we're calling back to their comic book origins, but updating it and making it fit this much more traditional witch aesthetic.
Right.
Because if we had that Salem 7 show up, it would turn the tone of the show into a completely different...
It might be a little silly.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, like I said, they're the children of Nicholas Scratch, who is the child of Agatha Harkness.
They're trying to free the bunny.
Possibly. They first showed up in Fantastic Four, but so did Agatha. Agatha was originally a Fantastic Four supporting cast member, and the Salem 7 were trying to release Nicholas Scratch in the comics as well. So we'll see if that's what they do here. But like I said, in more recent books, they have had a moral rehabilitation, and so they are now the protectors of New Salem, which is a haven of sorts, a sanctuary town for anyone born of magic.
Blood witches.
Yeah. One last thing before we reach the ending credits.
The Black Heart?
Yes. Agatha says to Rio, "You don't have a heart." And yes, I do. It's black, and it beats for you.
Which lends credence to all of the theories.
Yes. And even if those theories aren't necessarily true, it does come up again in the second episode of the show.
Right, which I did not catch the first time I watched, but I did catch the second time.
Yeah. But we get the ending credits to...
Which are fun!
They are fun. There are so many pop culture witches interwoven with historical folklore, quote-unquote,
and
real witches.
Right, and occasionally references that I'm sure will come up in the upcoming episodes. I caught one that was very directly with episode 2.
Yes, yep. But we'll talk about that at the end of episode 2, because that's when it happens.
Yeah.
Now, I noted here Season of the Witch by Donovan, which is just a gorgeous, spooky song to end the episode with.
Frankly, I'm kind of surprised that... I mean, is this a new song? I am not familiar with
Oh,
this.
no, Donovan is a 60s, 70s artist, and this is one of his best-known songs.
It sounded like that. It's just, I find it very odd that this hasn't been more popular among Halloween crowds of the last 20 years. The fact that I'm not familiar with it and it's so perfect for that season is a little surprising to me.
Yeah, that's a shame. Donovan has another song that has a comic book tie-in. Probably his most famous song is called Sunshine Superman. And so we move on to Season 1, Episode 2, Circle Sewn with Fate, Unlock Thy Hidden Gate.
Which is appropriately creepy.
Yes, and continuing with lyrics from the ballad of The
Yes.
Witch's Road. My assumption is that all of the episodes will be taken from the lyrics of that song.
Yeah, that seems likely.
And speaking of The Witch's Road, Agatha's planning on running away at this point, but Teen wants her to take him to The Witch's Road. And Teen is an Agatha fanboy.
He is. And he starts to show his skill at manipulating things to his direction, his will, his desires.
Yes.
He seems to always know exactly what to say.
Yeah. Even if that's not a witch power necessarily, he is a master manipulator.
Yeah.
And Agatha says when he says he's the one who broke the spell, and so far I'd say evidence points toward that being true.
Agreed.
And Agatha asks, if you can break a spell from the Scarlet Witch, why do you need the road? So here are my questions / theories.
Okay.
Can he break a spell on Agatha because he's family? Can he break a Scarlet Witch spell because he's family?
Can he break a Scarlet Witch spell because he's the Scarlet Witch in disguise?
Can he break a spell because he's Mephisto? No,
Well,
probably not. But yeah, so
I did write down, is teen related to ... dare I say it ... Mephisto.
Probably not.
No.
We're not going to go down that road again. We're going down a completely different road. So
I think it will be hilarious when Mephisto actually shows up in the MCU, just because he has been so many theories for so many things now.
Yeah. It turns out he was Herb the whole time.
Oh, God. And he would have gotten away with it, too.
Yeah. So your theory that you've presented is that Teen is Nicholas Scratch.
That is one of my theories, yes. I think it's possible he might be Wanda.
Okay. So here's the main theory to the point of everyone is assuming it's true in the fandom. Teen is aged up Billy.
Also totally possible. I mean, sort of. Because it's not like Billy actually existed in this universe.
In this universe. But we know he does exist in other universes.
As does Wanda, which is why that's a thought of mine.
Yeah. And Agatha asks, who are you?
And we get some nifty special effects.
Uh-huh. What I really wonder at this point, because he talks and he assumes that everyone can hear him.
Right.
He does not react like, hey, it's preventing me from saying a thing.
No, it's only affecting her.
That's what I wonder. Because...
Unless it's affecting the world and he just doesn't notice.
Right. Is he the only one who can hear himself say these things? Or is Agatha the only one who can't hear it? Because later she prevents him from saying things around other people.
Yeah, I noticed that as well. It could be that, again, she might be trying to protect him because she doesn't know all of how that will affect other people's views.
Right. Yeah.
And that would raise suspicion, or it could just be she has a mystery and she wants to be the one to figure it out.
Yeah, well, I mean, definitely the mystery draws her in because it's at this point that she's like, all right, come on, you're with me. Let's get in my car.
Yeah, I'm driving.
This was my favorite joke in the show so far.
Same. Oh my God, I laughed so hard both times I saw it.
And this is not a car.
Not a car.
Okay.
Okay, you're driving.
Oh, it would be hilarious to see episode 1 from the real world perspective. The outside, the Agnes of Westview perspective of her.
Yeah.
You know, just Sesame Street driving. And now they go outside, and I specifically noticed this spot as being the place where Sparky was found dead in WandaVision. It's the outside of Agnes's house, but that specific view of the large tree in the background and the bush on the left, I was like, oh, I remember that spot.
All right.
And then they pass the empty lot where Wanda and Vision lived.
Right.
I noticed the little bit of graffiti on the foundation there. Evil Witch
Which is
with and the crown of the Scarlet Witch, which makes total sense.
oh, absolutely. And yeah, any town that has a quote unquote haunted house, the teens are always going to be daring each other to go do something to or with it.
Yeah.
And this is the height of that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it absolutely makes sense that there's graffiti all over it.
Yeah, and it's 3 years later, so the kids who only came out on Halloween in WandaVision now are preteens and teens
Yeah.
who probably don't really remember much of that time, and so it's just
Other than being a mannequin on Halloween,
well,
if they were on the outskirts.
yeah, true. But so for them it's more legend than anything.
And definitely a show of bravery to go do something there.
Yeah, but Agatha sees it and gives a nice spit.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where we learn that you need a coven to access the road.
We learned quite a few things about covens, and we do not take notes.
No notes allowed. I found it interesting that Teen's boyfriend called. So he has existed in this world long enough to have gotten a boyfriend. So if he is Billy, which is what everyone's assuming he is, all the fans anyway,
Right.
he's either been rewritten into the world, which is how that happened in the comics. He shows up in Young Avengers #1 as a teenage kid who was adopted and, just doesn't know who his birth mother, his birth family is, and has just existed all this time.
God, wouldn't it be cruel of the writers to have Wanda's kids exist in this universe after the events of Doctor Strange 2?
Oh, yeah, especially if you don't bring Wanda back.
Right.
So, if this is Billy, they're doing some weird things with time.
Well, I mean, that's
that's but we've seen them
totally
do weird
accurate
things
to the
with time.
history of Billy.
Well, and the Disney Plus shows.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, anything involving multiverse, all bets are off.
Yeah, and we learned the Covenstead rule,
which is so ridiculous.
the fact that within any 3-mile radius there will be enough witchy enough people to form a coven.
Yeah, I mean that's what happens if somebody goes on a boat.
Then someone else will come in on a plane and be like, "Hey, this seems like a nice area." I think it's not necessarily a hard and fast rule, but just this is how densely populated witches are in relation to the rest of the world.
Yeah.
Because if you go out to Tunguska in the middle of Siberia and draw a 3-mile radius, there's not going to be enough witchy people there to form a coven.
Sure. Well, I mean, you never know, but
yeah. I mean, Tunguska specifically, maybe there is, but
right.
Yeah.
But additionally, when this rule was created, miles were not a standardized form of measurement.
Well, we're not given an exact rule of when this was noted as a rule.
Yeah, but when covens were more open and popular is when it would have been.
Okay, fair enough.
And I mean that the whole notion of how far is a mile, well, it's about this far. It's not like they were using computer topography.
True. It's more a guideline than a rule, really.
There you go.
But it seems to work in this case.
All intents and purposes.
Yes. We get our first stop at Madame Calderou's. Lilia Calderou is a Marvel character, but has literally only been in one issue.
Huh.
Well, other than a couple of retcons that show her in history, because she appears and dies in Marvel Premiere number 12 in August of 1973. So really, this is going to be one of those just in-name only sort of things. Although she does have ties to Wanda through one of those retcons that I mentioned in a book called Mystic Arcana, Scarlet Witch number 1. She formed a coven with a couple of other Marvel Comics witches, and that coven was able to sense that young Wanda Maximoff would someday be very powerful.
Okay.
In fact, her divinations, so she is, in the comics, she is a divination witch, and they foretold that Wanda's powers would begin to manifest in 2 days from when this story takes place, and they are the ones who prevent the demon Chthon from taking over Wanda as a child. So yeah, that's Lilia in the comics. Again, one of those kind of in-name only sort of adaptations. But in the show, she is played by the magnificent Patti LuPone.
So good.
Of the two of us, you are much more the Broadway guy, so why don't you give a little...
Well, she is a multi-Tony winner. She's had some amazing roles that were created for her, and she's one of those legends of Broadway that you walk around New York, you can pull aside a random person and ask for what's your favorite memory about Patti LuPone, and they will have one. It's just one of those people.
Yeah.
And she's so good.
Yeah. I believe she originated Evita.
I believe so, yes.
And I have a special place in my heart for Gypsy, because that was one of the shows I did when I was actively acting. And she did a 2006, 2007
right.
production where she played Mama Rose.
The performance they did on the Tonys of that from that production was just terrifying, appropriately so.
Yeah. Those of you who aren't on Broadway but are of our age range will remember her as the mom from the TV show Life Goes On. I love the interaction between Agatha pretending to be a rube and Lilia pretending to be a fake.
Even though both of them already know.
I don't know if Agatha knows. This is Agatha's test. She suspects, but this is her test. And it isn't until Lilia says, it's been 3 years. That's when Agatha turns back around and is like, okay, wait, she actually knows something here.
Right.
But something's going on with Lilia.
Oh, everything about her. I mean, it's such a great method that the writers have created for foreshadowing stuff.
Yeah.
That she just has little moments. Every witch has their process.
She has these little tics.
Yeah.
Very much like a mystical version of Tourette's.
Mm-hmm.
And she later says something like, get away from me, or something like that.
Get off me. I have that written down.
Yeah. So I have to wonder if she's seeing and reacting to things that just others can't see because of her specific brand of witchiness.
Potentially, but I think that moment will come up in a later episode.
Oh, probably.
Something to watch for, kind of like Agent Franklin.
Yes.
And for those of you on the Agent Franklin watch, we still have not seen him.
Rest in peace, Agent Franklin. I think he drowned in a sewer.
And if not, then he's back on the job as soon as Wanda took down the hex.
Yeah. And we get a confirmation of something all the way back from WandaVision that we had suspected, but wasn't specifically told to us until now. Agatha can't steal magic unless someone blasts her with it.
Which this is the one moment that frustrated me about the writers. It is so out of character for Agatha to have said that. Why would she willingly tell someone her one weakness? And I get that we need the foreshadowing. We need to have that as an audience.
Yeah.
And I don't see how they would have done it otherwise. But this moment of exposition felt a little clunky to me.
I can see that. I can agree with you. It felt like at that moment that Agatha thought it was the only way she would get
the trust.
Yeah.
Probably.
I'll accept it, but I will agree that it did bump me a little bit and make me go, you could have found another way.
And as it turned out, it wasn't necessary anyway.
No, because Lilia has a little episode here and writes down a list of names for the coven. And
Now, did you hear what she said in her episode?
If I did, I didn't note it.
She said 3 of Pentacles.
Oh, right. Yes. That was as she was coming out of the episode. Yeah, okay. You looked up the tarot card?
I did. Now, she did not specify if this was an upright
or reversed
view or a reversed view.
Right.
But both apply.
Ooh.
It's another one of those moments. So upright, the 3 of Pentacles means teamwork, collaboration, learning, or implementation.
Okay.
Reversed, disharmony, misalignment, or working alone.
Now, I will say, being close friends with someone who is very into tarot, that usually when you give a reading, you will say 3 of Pentacles or 3 of Pentacles reversed.
Yes. And of the two, the upright is way more appropriate to the situation.
Yes.
We're creating the team.
Yeah. And I enjoy how Lilia's like, okay, I've done my part. I'm out.
Yeah.
No. You're on the
Can't
list.
argue with you.
And so, yeah, this is where we see, we get a brief shot of most of the list, which is Agatha Harkness, Lilia Calderou, Jennifer Kale, and Alice Wu. Before we get to the next member of the coven, we get our first Salem 7 hint here, as a crow or raven is watching, and Agatha definitely takes note.
Oh, yes. Her reactions to these animals are not subtle.
No, not at all. And then we're off to Jennifer Kale.
Now, I'd like to take a moment to point something out.
Okay.
That I did not notice.
Okay.
In either time I watched the show. I did not notice this, but my son Aiden did.
Ooh.
Which was, every time they are driving in Teen's car, there is a specific car following them.
Really?
They are being followed. I didn't see it either time.
Wow.
And he had talked to me about this between my first and second viewing. I didn't even remember to look for it the second time. But according to him, and he is quite observant with these things, there was somebody following them.
Now, I did notice a white car at one point. Is that the one he's referring
Probably.
to?
He didn't give me specifics.
Okay.
So that's an interesting little who knows.
Yeah.
Now, it's entirely possible that Aiden is reading way more into this than exists. He may have seen it the first time and then projected it into future scenes. But if it's the case, my guess is Rio.
Okay.
And there's a number of reasons for that, but the biggest one is that they are successful in opening the door later, and they need to have had a green witch that isn't Mrs. Hart. So somebody had to be helping.
Maybe. I have thoughts on Mrs. Hart. But Jennifer Kale has a much longer history than basically
Lilia.
anyone except for Agatha. She has Been around since 1972. Her first appearance in Fear number 11. Fear was the book that Man-Thing mostly appeared in. So she has a relationship to that character, who we saw in the Werewolf by Night special presentation. But she's been involved with X-Force, the Midnight Suns, Ghost Rider, Man-Thing I already mentioned, Atlantis, Howard the Duck. She has been a constant presence as just a highly skilled sorceress from her first appearance. But this Jennifer is not so powerful at the moment.
No, she is bound.
Yes. Which they don't go into, but I recall from one of my other favorite witchy projects, The Craft. When you are bound, it's basically the rest of your coven saying, we take your power away from you. We are binding you to prevent yourself from doing harm to yourself or harm to others. And so, other than the road, the only other way to get that undone would be for her
to convince the coven to take it away.
Yeah, which I'm assuming is
not an option.
Yeah. So instead, she's currently selling new age health goods.
Which obviously Agatha highly respects.
Oh, obviously. I'll take a jade egg to go.
Oh my god.
The candle that is both a meditative scent and a probiotic digestive aid.
That you can only consume after it's been burned for FDA reasons.
Yep. And like you said earlier, it's Teen that is able to convince Jennifer. He's the one that knows about her class action lawsuits and says, hey, if you had your power back from the Witch's Road,
this wouldn't be an issue.
Wouldn't be an issue.
He also convinced Lilia. He's the one who said you can't argue with you.
That's true. Basically, these convincings get harder and harder as they go on. Yeah. Lilia was the easiest. Sorry, you're on the list. You gotta come. Next is, no, I don't want to. No, I've been avoiding you. If you've been avoiding her, why are you within a 3-mile radius of her?
3 miles. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's possible that in Eastview she wasn't fully aware of Agatha's involvement in Westview.
Fair enough. But yeah, Teen gets her to come on board, and there's a fourth, well, I would say technically a fifth name because Agatha's name was on there, but there's a fourth name that Agatha refuses to acknowledge, so she eats the list. A little childish, but
a little, well, and Teen calls her out on that. Very mature.
Yeah. And I only caught this line because I have the subtitles on, but she says, I'm hungry now. I could use a corn dog.
Mm-hmm.
And so we wipe up to them at the mall with her having a corn dog. And we get our next witch here. Now, the written on the sheet was just Alice Wu, but Agatha refers to her as Alice Wu Gulliver. And there is a character in the Marvel Comics, again, one of those showed up once, basically never seen again, who is Alice Gulliver. Her witch name is the Wu.
Okay.
And specifically is the daughter of Hong Kong's mystic guardian, the August Wu of the Coral Shore, who is a Chinese or Hong Kong sorceress who protects Hong Kong. And when her mother was killed, her black hair turned a shade of coral red, just like her mother's. And she inherited the powers of the Wu. So as close as they can, while still making it fit the MCU, they are adapting these characters. this Alice Wu is a blood witch. She is the daughter of another witch, and she has coral red streaks in her hair. So I like how they are taking as much from the comics as they can while still making it blend in properly with the show that they're doing.
Well, that is what Marvel has been doing with their characters the whole time.
For the most part, there have been characters where they basically just take a name and graft completely different histories onto them. So I wanted to bring this up as a specifically highly accurate within the confines of the MCU sort of thing. And we find out that Lorna Wu was a rock star in addition to being a famous witch.
And giving away family secrets.
Well, not family secrets, just witch.
Well, if you take the witch community as a family.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah. She performed the most famous version of the Ballad of the Road. So if it's the most famous version, that means there are other versions out there that were recorded and are known.
Right.
So I don't think she was necessarily giving away secrets that were meant to be hidden. She just made them more famous than other people had.
Right.
And Teen mentions my mom went to see her last tour right before she died, which I assume he means right before Lorna died, not his mom. But either way, Billy, if it's Billy, then he has to be talking about his adopted mom.
Right.
We get Agatha seeing a rat. We get our second Salem 7-ish appearance here. And we find out that Lorna works at... They never say it, but it's Hot Topic.
Actually, they do say it.
Oh, I didn't see it.
Very visible in the background while she's eating the corn dog.
Oh, I did not... Oh, okay. I wasn't looking for it then. I was looking for it when they were actually in the store.
No, it's very, very visible.
Okay.
And it did make me wonder if Disney owns Hot Topic.
Oh, so yeah, they're at Hot Topic, and Lorna works there as security, which is appropriate given that she is a protection witch. Again, pointing to her comic book origins as the guardian of Hong Kong. And Agatha sneaks something into Teen's pocket and then says run, which cracked me up. And Alice just 1 foot out trip.
Now, Alice says that she saw him sneaking something.
She says them.
Okay.
She says, I saw them lifting something.
All right.
But apparently Agatha is able to get it back out of Teen's pocket at some point.
Which we do not see happen.
Right.
I was watching for it.
Yeah. Because, yeah, after Agatha gives her spiel, she's like, no, he didn't take anything. Check his pockets. Nope, nothing there.
Yeah, she basically gets away with theft through the nuh-uh technique.
And gets Alice fired for it.
Yes, without actually anyone looking in his pocket.
Well, there's a cut between her saying nuh-uh and them leaving the store. So there could have been a cursory turn out your pockets. No, there's nothing there. You're fired.
But it was still after he said you're fired.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. So, well, and even if you're working security, if you're working security in a store, your what you're allowed to do to people is very limited. So the fact that she tripped him and held him down and such,
It's almost like punching a suspect.
which it if it's a convicted felon, then it's fine.
Well, yeah, you can't be
Wrong and
wrong
right
and
at the
right
same
at
time.
the same time.
No. Yeah. So I can see her getting fired for what she did. But at the same
Yeah.
time, if that's what she did, it
There are a lot of things wrong with how that scene went.
right.
Like, for example, what Hot Topic doesn't have alarm sensors at the door?
They did. You
Did
heard,
they?
yeah, they went off.
Well, then she shouldn't have been fired. Except that she tackled a customer.
Except that she tackled a customer. But at the same time, if my problem is if you're going to have a security guard specifically at your store, if they can't take any action, what's the
Why
point?
are they there?
Or yeah. They
Yeah.
they are just there as a deterrent for, you know, the
Look, if you try something,
we have
a
security.
person.
Yeah. Yeah. So
And as a former cop, she's not satisfied with that role, which I get.
absolutely. Yeah, she is an ex-cop. That will explain a lot of things later, apparently.
Or at least answer a bunch of questions.
Yes. Yeah, but Alice says no and puts her headphones on and walks away. So it is late enough now that it's time to get back to Westview. And we get our second teen can't tell us anything moment here.
Right.
As Agatha asks where he's from, and all we hear is, "I was born and raised in Eastview." And then we get that high-pitched tinnitus sound there.
With his audio getting very quiet and muffled.
Yes. And I like how she tests herself with the snapping of the fingers, the turning on the radio. It's like, okay, I can hear everything else. It's just him.
It's just you.
And he has no clue.
Despite the fact that she's testing herself right there in front of him.
Well, he's paying more attention to the road than her. He's driving. It is a little weird to have somebody snap their fingers and then turn on the radio while someone's telling you something, but
after they just asked you to tell them that.
Yeah.
But it's also not out of character for Agatha.
Right. Yeah. Tell me something. I'm going to ignore it.
Yeah.
But they get back to Westview, and Agatha puts on her witchy regalia. I love this outfit so much. And so does Agatha.
Yes, clearly. And so do the neighbors.
Well, they, at the very least, they appreciate that she's wearing something.
Oh, yeah, who can blame them?
And Teen has made this a party.
Welcome, Coven.
Is this centered right? Let me see. Maybe if we just tear it down.
Mm-hmm. No, leave it up.
Yes, Jennifer shows up first. She is definitely the kind of person who wants to be fashionably late.
Right.
So she is pissed that she is the first one to show. But Lilia shows up shortly thereafter, and then Alice. And Agatha's like, great, let's go.
I thought it was fantastic that when Lilia walked in the door, she looked at Jennifer and said, High Priestess.
Yes. Well, again, her divination powers. She knows things automatically.
Yeah, she is seeing multiple time frames at the same time.
Yeah.
Which we've seen in other characters who have foresight as well. It's not always clear when I am.
Right. Yeah.
Just another fun moment of divination.
Yes, absolutely. And like I was saying, Agatha is ready to go, but the rest of them are like, no, we need an Earth Witch. And now we learn the last name on the list was just a Black Heart.
Yeah.
And so Agatha says, hey, I know a heart. Let me go get her. And she specifically notes that Sharon, or Mrs. Hart as she was known in the WandaVision show within a show, and they even used a heart in the first episode of WandaVision on the calendar.
Right.
So they have made this reference before, but Agatha notes how good her garden is looking these days.
Yeah. Yeah, I had noted that as well. They need an Earth Witch.
They need a green witch.
Let's get a green witch. So I'll get somebody, hey, you're good at gardening. That works out.
You're good at gardening and your name is Hart in one iteration.
So it's technically possible that she is the person who was on the list.
Yeah. And I would love to see an awakening of her power here. That would be a fun moment to have in this series, would be for her to actually find out she is a witch in this universe. But now that we've got everyone together, it's time to sing the ballad.
Oh, such a gorgeous arrangement.
Absolutely. Again, go check out the D23 performance because it's live on stage and
nice.
Yeah.
I do like that through this particular song, the bell that Agatha is holding changes pitch so that they can have a key change.
You just move up on the bell a little bit, it rings differently, right?
Sure.
Yeah, that's how bells work.
Yeah.
Now, unfortunately for him, Teen is relegated to upstairs while they do this.
Yeah, we'll let you know when it's ready.
Sure they will.
Yeah.
But it's a good thing he was up there because he gets the warning of the Salem 7 showing up.
And man, oh man, were they creepy.
They are nice and creepy. Again, if we had gotten the comic book accurate adaptation, this would have been a joke moment, but instead it is dark and creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That first moment of seeing them as one looked almost like a Scarlet Witch silhouette.
Okay.
And then they did that split and it's like, ugh.
And Herb is like, oh, I'm getting out of here.
Yeah.
I want no part of this.
Again, cannot blame him.
No. The fact that he still even lives in this town to me is...
Oh my God.
I mean, would you want to live next door to Agnes after all the stuff happened?
Again, it's hard to see hard to know how they see her because she is the one that cut their strings.
Yeah, they did see Wanda as more of a villain, but at the same time, they did not see her as a hero, I don't think.
It's hard to say. She was the one fighting Wanda.
Yeah. Herb seems scared of her at the very least.
Well, yes.
Yeah, so the Salem 7 show up, the song finishes, and no door.
Yeah, it did not take this long last time. Well, maybe if you weren't so pitchy. I love the bickering.
The bickering between them was especially when Sharon pipes in, I thought we sounded great.
Yeah.
Which I agree with her.
I do too, but Sharon getting into the song when they were holding hands and swinging her arms around.
Well, and somebody else pointed this out, but the actress, Deborah Jo Rupp, for most people, is best known as the mother on that 70s show. And in that 70s show, the kids hung out in the basement and had many shots of them sitting in a circle and the camera rotating around to each of them as they had their dialogue. And so possibly this is a little subtle homage to a previous role that she had, because there were also a couple of scenes. It was done very rarely, but occasionally the adults would be downstairs in the basement sitting at the same table, kind of mirroring their own children. So yeah, there's more infighting while Teen runs from the Seven. And
Is this the door?
Is this the door?
Good, let's go. Gotta go right now.
Sharon, you've been down the road.
Yes. Oh, I loved the moment just before that where she's hesitating and Agatha looks. What's your heart tell you?
What's your gut tell you? Let's go down the stairs.
Yeah. And then we get the crab walking one of the seven.
Yes. Yeah. A nice little exorcist moment there.
Mm-hmm.
They close the door back up and it seals up, and so they are safe for now.
As safe as one can be on the road that every single person is scared of except Agatha and Teen.
Mm-hmm. And they follow the stairs down to a forest.
Because that's how stairs work.
That's where all stairs go.
Yeah.
And another one of those lines that cracked me up was, after all that infighting, Agatha comes down and she's like, I never doubted us for a second.
Yes. But again, we missed a moment.
Okay.
Where the seven are obviously there and they're coming, and Agatha recognizes this, and she knows who's coming. No one else does.
Right.
But that's when she verbally attacks the other witches in the coven and tries to get them to attack her. And only Lillian recognizes that.
Yes.
Because she was told earlier in the episode.
Yeah.
But again, I think that the purpose of that was not to defend herself, but to defend all of them. I think she was trying to get the power needed to fight the battle that she didn't think anyone else could handle with the knowledge that they had.
Right. Now, what I wonder is, if Agatha gets her powers from witches blasting her, what would the Salem Seven do?
Unclear. We don't know how they attack. I mean, we know that from her battle with Rio, blades work fine.
That's true. So we're basically at the end of the episode here, as Agatha takes off her shoes.
And everyone else follows suit.
Yeah, which is I believe, the thing you were noting, that we were both noting in the closing credits as being... Yeah. Remove thy shoes, being circled.
Yeah, ye shall remove your shoes before touching the hallowed ground.
There you go.
It went on, but that was the first line of that book in the closing credits.
Mm-hmm. And so they leave their shoes behind. And down the road they start. Now,
the yellow brick road.
Which is one of the many references made in the closing credits.
Yes. Oh my God. So many references.
My favorite is that they made an Agatha in the Bewitched style.
I don't think I noticed that one.
It's when they say directed by Jack Schaefer, or Jace. I don't know how you pronounce her first name. It's Jac.
Okay. At
that moment, there is a cartoon in the Bewitched opening animation style, but it's not Samantha, because she has black hair rather than blonde.
That's cool.
But yeah, there's that. There's old illustrations from Wizard of Oz, Lisa Simpson as a witch. There's the Wicked Witch from The Evil Stepmother from Snow White. Just all sorts of witchy pop culture characters mixed in with the
moment from The Craft.
Yeah.
There was...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the All kinds of stuff.
Yeah. And in the first episode, there were no special thanks given to comic book creators. The only thing along those lines was a Agatha Harkness created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby.
Okay.
But in the second episode, we do get special thanks from the creators of all the other witches that have been noted, along with James Robinson, who wrote the Scarlet Witch series in which the Witch's Road first appears.
Oh, nice.
So the Witch's Road, I love how the MCU will take from all over the history of the Marvel Universe.
Mhm.
Because, as I mentioned, Agatha is from the late 60s. Most of these witches were from the early 70s. The Wu and the Witch's Road are from the 2010s.
Wow.
They are a much more recent creation and addition to Marvel Universe lore. Before the Witch's Road, I had kind of forgotten about the Witch's Road from the Scarlet Witch series, so I had thought they were adapting another bit of Marvel witch lore, which is called the Winding Way, practiced most notably by Nightcrawler's adopted mother.
Okay.
And her biological daughter, who was, for a time, Nightcrawler's girlfriend.
Comics.
So, yeah, until I kind of got reminded of, oh yeah, the Witch's Road actually is a thing in Marvel, I thought they were doing the Winding Way instead. And so I was expecting Margali Zardoz to show up as...
Gesundheit.
Thank you. As a character, but not that we've seen.
Yeah.
And that, you
never know.
They're being very slow and methodical with bringing anything X-Men related into the MCU. Sure. So it makes sense that they would take something. And again, this first appeared in a Scarlet Witch series. So with Agatha being so closely related to Wanda in the MCU, it makes sense that they would take more from Wanda's lore in the comics.
Well, I mean, it's not like Wanda has any major interactions with the X-Men universe.
No, not at all. It's not like she was a founding member of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants
or caused there to be no more mutants.
Yeah. Or thought she was the daughter of the most famous evil mutant of all time for a long time.
Yeah.
None
of that.
No connection there to the X-Men at all. Or was responsible for X-Men who were dead prior to Cerebro being created, being able to be resurrected by the mutants on Krakoa for a while.
Details.
Anyway, enough of those deep cuts there. So I am loving this show so far.
Same. I'm very, very pleased with, I mean, it's easily on the same level of my enjoyment, at least, with WandaVision thus far.
Yeah.
I think this is a very worthy sequel, and just excited to see where it goes.
Yes. And I think even though there were, I think the first episode especially was a lot of setup. I think we're getting a lot of mystery that we will be able to talk about and theorize on as the show continues.
Yeah.
So I think this is going to be a lot of fun.
I do too. And I'm looking forward to diving deep into it with you.
That self-referential comment felt like the perfect place to end things. While this edited conversation is a little under 2 hours, the full talk went nearly 3, with some pre- and post-show banter, as well as the occasional off-topic talk and a couple of jokes that, while I think are funny, don't quite fit the tone of the show I'm usually aiming for. If you want to hear what exactly I left on the cutting room floor, you can go over to patreon.com/welcome to Geektown and join for just $1 per month. That also gets you bloopers and scripts of all the written episodes. And don't forget that if you have thoughts on Agatha you want to share, or topics you'd like to hear about on future scripted episodes, you can email those to welcome2geektown, all spelled out, @gmail.com. Or you can go to the website, welcome to, the number 2 in this case, geektown.com, and click the Submit a Question link if you'd prefer to remain anonymous. Other contact options include facebook.com/welcome to Geektown, Twitter @Geektown Podcast, Mastodon @welcome2geektown @mastodon.social, or Blue Sky @welcome2geektown.bluesky.social. You can also help the show grow by subscribing and giving a 5-star review over on Apple Podcasts to join the Geektown City Council, which helps other people find the show, so we can all tell them,
Welcome to Geektown. Population, us.
Welcome to Geektown is written, narrated, edited, and produced by me, Kurt Onstead. Theme music is by Aaron Levitz, logo art by Archie Santana. All other sound clips of the copyrighted material, their respective owners, and no infringement is intended, falling under fair use.